Good evening, everyone. My name is Sana Joseph Smith, and I am the immediate past president of the Serie Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and welcome to our Women's Talk series. This evening's show is sponsored by the Serie Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and we specifically want to dedicate this show to our sorority sister, Miss Rita Dishabert-Schuster, who passed away yesterday. She was one of our charter members, and so we extend our condolences and prayers out to our sorority sisters, her friends, and family. Today's program is about knowing your body, knowing yourself, knowing your options, and I have some awesome guests here with me today. In fact, over here to my left, we have Kim Jerome. She is a registered nurse and health professional. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And next to her, we have Lily Doctrine Cornelius. And she is not only a survivor, but she's also one of the board members for Ribbons for a Cure. Welcome, Lily.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And last but not least, we have our diva, Miss Cassandra Dunn. She is a survivor as well and a board member for the YAG Foundation. So we have some heavy hitters with us today. So it's going to be a great conversation. And we're hoping that you enjoy it and you feel like you're just peeping in on what we're talking about today. So I'm going to start right off with you, Kim, as our professional today. Can you share with us some statistics about how the breast cancer is impacting our community, what's happening, and just kind of lay the foundation for, how frequent it is and so forth?
Absolutely. So I want to start by sharing that breast cancer is the second highest cause of death in women in the United States. Wow. Second only to skin cancers. And amongst women, African American women have a 1 in 7 chance of developing breast cancer during their lifetime. And we are seeing declines in those numbers. Since 1989 to 2020, there's been a gradual decrease in the incidences, which is promising. However, we want to get those numbers down even more, right? Because we still have a lot of deaths each year in the U.S. that are directly attributed to breast cancer. And we have a lot of people that are living with this disease process. And so we want to make sure that we are talking about advocacy, we're talking about prevention, we're talking about self-care, and as well as treatment options as well, because I think that the more information that we have as women and as a community, because it does not only affect women, breast cancer, and a lot of people think that it's synonymous with women, but breast cancer does affect men as well. And so we have close to 30,000 men living with breast cancer in the United States as well. So, so we have to just have the open dialogue in regards to... The
conversations need to continue.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the big reasons why this topic was so important to, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is the disparity in health and how this has impacted, women of color exponentially more than others, and so we really want to highlight that. And it's one thing to list the statistics, it's another thing when you become a part of it. And so just wanted to transition, and to Lily, if you would like to share with us, please, your journey and what happened.
So my journey began in December of 2012. That's when I was actually diagnosed, but it started prior. But unbeknownst to me, I went for my regular annual exam, and my doctor at the time, he says, "Do you feel this?" The lump was under my arm, under my left arm. Now, I'm a 10-year, going to be 11 in December, survivor. So I want to say back in those days, we did do the self-checks.
So you would normally check yourself?
I would normally check, but not under my arm. It was not advocated back then to check under your arm. So he found it, and he said, I've never felt that before, and let's go get you checked, because of my age at the time, back then you were 40. That's when you did your mammograms.
But you were in your 30s.
But I was in my late 30s.
Okay.
So I proceeded, I followed his instructions, and I went and I did my mammogram. The mammogram did not pick up anything. I went back the following year, and that lump was still there. And he says, just humor me. I know you said you didn't find anything, but humor me, go back. So once again, I went, and my exam was in October, and because of insurance purposes, I couldn't do it until December.
Oh.
And so the lump actually showed up. I had to wait until December to get the exam. And during that time, between October and December, I actually got a lump to the top of my chest.
Oh.
And so when I went back for my mammogram, I said, okay, check this because this is new. And it turned out that that was, it was cancerous.
Wow.
And so part of my treatment, I had surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. And the treatment back then, it was only chemo and radiation, nothing else. And you were basically sent home and just had to pray that nothing else happened. Triple negative breast cancer is a cancer that back then was fairly new. It affected minorities, so not much research had been done on it. And most of the times when you found out that you had the cancer, you were at like a stage 4. And so like death was imminent, you know, that was what was said. So it was very aggressive.
Wow.
But you know, coming from the islands, first thing my dad did was plant some moringa trees.
All
and
right.
was like, you need to drink some moringa.
That's it.
Not advocating that, but I'm just saying.
We're not saying just that, but a combination.
Exactly.
We're claiming all forms of healing,
Yes,
right?
Exactly. So I went through, I had my surgery, I did my chemo, and I did my radiation.
In hindsight, when you look back on your journey, were there any signs that now that you know what happened, other than the uncomfortable lump on your arm and by your lymph nodes, were there any other indications?
So the one thing that I was experiencing at the time, I had some horrible backaches. And I went to every doctor. So, you know, I had a colonoscopy, you know, all the things that you would think, you know, I had x-rays on my back. I went to the chiropractor. And when I got to, all my treatment was done off island. And they then told me that that is one of the indicators of the breast cancer is the lower back pain.
Got
so
it.
So I got to learn something new. Yes.
Okay.
So
that's great to share, you know,
yes.
with our audience that,
Yes.
again, knowing your body,
Correct.
knowing yourself.
Correct.
And just having to really advocate for yourself.
Yes.
How are you feeling now?
I'm feeling great.
You look great.
Thank you. It comes with the normal aches and pains. You're on this journey, and I will say that to me, and this is just for me personally, the journey never ends because
I've heard that.
I'm under surveillance, so I go back every year and get checked. You know, it started out as every 3 months, then every 4 months, then every 6 months, and now once a year. And so I'm at the stage of what they call surveillance. So I go back once a year, I undergo all the testing to just make sure that everything is okay. And I'm telling you that is like the most frightening time. It's very, for me, it's anxiety filled because you never know. And so 11 years later, I am, you know, I'm thankful to God first and foremost. You know, my church family at the time, I can tell you the story of my pastor. When I called him I remember clearly, I called him and I said to him, I have a headache, and they say that they have to do a CAT scan because they need to see if this cancer have spread to my brain. Unbeknownst to me, he was in Georgia at the time, and he said, I'm coming to meet you. And he drove, and he came, and he met me, and he stayed with me until we got the clearance that all was well, you know. But so that support, that family support, the prayers, and I have an awesome family.
All right.
Awesome. I had at the time my daughter was about 7 years old, and my husband had to take over the job of being the caretaker, as well as my grandma, my sisters, and so, you know, family is key. I have awesome friends, you know, folks who would come by and bring some food and just say, let me help you.
Right.
And so that's when you have that kind of support. And I think one of the things I like to say to people, sometimes it may not be your family, it may be your friends, but that support is key. That support is key.
That's awesome. And one of a survivor shared with me that it is a journey because it doesn't stop, and every time you have to keep getting checked, you go through those emotions. Cassandra, as a survivor, tell us your story.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, because just communicating about breast cancer, with each other and with, all types of audiences is a very therapeutic process. Thank you so much for the invitation to this conversation. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer, ironically, on the first day of Breast Cancer Awareness Month in 2009. And leading up to that, I think I knew there was a lump, but I was a busy working mother, doing
Did you
this,
self-check,
doing that.
or
I self-checked.
You did self-check, okay.
But
Touch those tetas.
But my husband actually was the one that discovered the lump,
Okay,
right?
all right,
And
hubby.
so, when
he
we talk,
knows what's supposed to be there.
right, exactly. So I had the surgery, similar, the lumpectomy. And then...
and just for clarification, that's when they cut out piece of
yes,
it?
they take a lump, right? They take the lump out. It was, it had broken through the milk duct and now was in the breast. And so I went through the process of the surgery. They had to go back in and clear the margins. They weren't sure they had gotten it. And then I realized there was no full-time oncologist in the Virgin Islands. And so I decided I would go stateside. When I got to the States, I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. So stage 4, it had spread to my liver. And so for the next 10 months, I was in chemo. And, that was hard, it was challenging, but I'll tell you, the support of my family just made it such a more bearable journey. And of course, I used to get up every morning and dance, because you have to have some sort of relief, right?
Yes.
And so, just give me an oldie anytime, and I'm up and moving. And it keeps you going, and it also encourages you. And so through that experience, I came back, and by that time, the Yvonne Ashley Gallagher Breast Cancer Foundation had been founded, and I jumped right into, supporting that. And since then, we've been doing a lot of work, advocacy and all. So that was the beginning of my journey. Since then, I had breast cancer 3 more times, like clockwork, in 2011, 2013, and 2015.
Oh, wow.
And so it's been quite a journey, but the beautiful part of it is the survival of breast cancer, and I think everyone can testify that
you'd like to keep that title,
that
right?
If you keep that positive attitude, the rest of it is quite bearable.
And each time you went through similar treatments, or does it get different as it recurs?
It varied.
Okay.
And there was the mouth medication that I took. There was intravenous and all. I still go back regularly to be checked and to get a PET scan. Okay. And also to just, stay in touch with what's happening and to be encouraging with those others that I meet.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I can't imagine having to share something so intimate and personal. So I just really extend my appreciation to both of you for being vulnerable for the sake of our community and sharing so you can hear that story. Kim, I know that you, thank goodness, do not have the title of being survivor, but you had a really interesting story about your self-check experience when you were younger. Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. So at the age of, I believe I was 25, and I was having my son, I was a nurse, and so we had learned about breast cancer or breast self-examination during nursing school. So, you know, they literally made us practice, and then we had to practice on prosthetics and things of that nature. And so it became a habit for me to check. And they taught us to always just check every day, just check in the shower. And one day I was, well, let me do my check. And I did a check, and I was like, that kind of feels like something, right? It feels different. Something feels different there. And went in, had another physical examination from a doctor, and they said they wanted to do a biopsy. And so they did a needle biopsy.
And did they naturally go to that point with you being so young, or did you have to advocate and kind of push for that?
It was the lump, and I actually still have the lump. I opted not to remove it because at one point they wanted to remove it and study it, the mass, because of the size. And I said, is there a benefit to removing it versus not removing it? And they said, well, is it bothering you? And I said, no. And so I opted to not have a surgical procedure just because of some of the research that I've read with cancer cells and exposure to oxygen and all kinds of things. But so that was a personal decision for me. And so thankfully the lump was not cancerous. However, at the age of 25, 26 years old, I found myself having my first mammogram. And like these ladies, while initially they said it's not cancerous, but they were very concerned that I may develop some sort of breast cancer. And so for years I did annual mammograms in my 20s still. And then after several years of negative mammograms, then I moved to 5 years, and then recently to 10, and so now I'm back to annual again as I age. So
you could not be over 40.
Closer to 50. So for me, the message is that while the recommended time frame for women to start getting mammograms may be 40, 45 even, I think some of the newer recommendations, I believe that it's really important to push that we do self-examinations.
Touch your tetas.
Absolutely. Because breast cancer, interestingly enough, affects Caucasian women at a higher rate than African American women.
Interesting.
But African American women die from breast cancer at a much higher rate. And that's because by the time we find it, because our breasts tend to have more dense tissue.
Yes, I've had that experience.
And so by the time we're able to find a lump, it's further along. And we also, for some reason, the average age for Caucasian women with cancer is somewhere around 50s to 60.
Okay.
However, for African American women, it's much younger.
That's
and
interesting.
so I like to say that we can develop cancers at any age. And so we need to just think of prevention and screening as a regular tool. So as soon as women are at the age where they're getting regular annual exams, they should be doing regular breast examinations as well.
Before I move on to my next observation, can you share, with the audience, like, what is a mammogram? Like, I don't know if some of the younger audience members that may be listening, can you describe what that is?
Oh, well, it's
the fun we have.
Such a lovely examination, but we shouldn't be afraid of it. And so what a mammogram is a way of going in and visualizing the breast tissues and the surrounding tissues, because now, to Lily's point, they now try to get as much of that tissue from under your arm as possible, right? And so they're basically going in and taking pictures that go through the tissue, right? I'm trying to say it in layman's terms, not photographs, but they're taking the pictures, and it can actually look at the different layers and densities of the tissue. And so we know what normal breast mass is supposed to look like.
Okay.
And we know what normal ducts look like and normal lymph nodes look like. So when there's a deviation in that, then we're able to pick up that there's either and African American women tend to have not just dense tissue, but we develop fibrous masses very frequently, and so those masses do have to be evaluated to make sure that they're not cancerous. And so it's very important to be a self-advocate, because while a screening may not be, a mammogram screening may not be recommended for someone in their 20s, we do have women that are being diagnosed in their 20s and losing their lives from breast cancer as early as their 20s. And so it's really important to just communicate about feeling comfortable about examining yourself, but also advocating for yourself,
yes.
having the conversation, going and getting it checked out, having those discussions with the doctors, and not letting anyone sweep it under the rug, because that sometimes happens with African American women as well.
What I love about hearing about your different, stories and journeys is that everyone had different individual decisions. You all made decisions that were best for you, your situation, in your moment. And I think it's really important that as women, we take charge of our health. And so when we're saying the saying, know yourself, know your body, know your choices, it's important for us to be educated. And that's why this conversation is so important, so that hopefully those that are watching can understand that your journeys, your paths, it can all look so different, but you gotta educate yourself. You have to know, otherwise you never know what will happen at that point. Quick question, which isn't really a quick question, but is there anything we can do to lower our risk? This is really controversial. When I did my research, folks were all over the place. Don't breathe, breathe. I mean, it was just like everywhere. What are your thoughts? What are your experiences, professionally as survivors? What do you think is the best thing for women or anyone to lower their risk when it comes to breast cancer in particular? And I'll start with you, Cassandra, and then we'll work our way this way.
Okay. Well, one of the important things is that we have to have better access to health care. We have to be able to feel that the resources are available for us to be able to get that diagnosis, and be able to talk about it, and also to deal with whatever the challenges are. Of course, add to that, we have to be sure that we're taking care of ourselves.
Okay.
Right?
And what does that mean, Ms.
Well,
Cassandra?
I was about to say, because, we get busy and we set other priorities for ourselves. We forget sometimes that we should put ourselves first, because if we're not good for us, how can we be good for our family members? And so a lot of that has to do with teaching ourselves to love ourselves.
Got it.
And if we start there and we know that we're entitled to good health care, we're going to go out, we're going to demand it, we're going to get it, and we're going to use it in the best possible way. And then we're going to share information.
Yeah.
And we're going to support, we're going to take friends to, get their mammograms and all of that. So I think that's a big part of it.
And for you, Lily, what have your research, your experience, what do you do to try to lower the risk, or would you share?
I would say your lifestyle.
Okay.
As much as possible, stay away from stress.
Okay.
I know one of the things they said to me at the time, I was working 2 jobs. I was out there to do what I needed to do to get ahead. And
handle your business.
Yes. And he said, girl, do you know you're working, you're working stressful jobs?
Yeah.
You got to get rid of some of this. And so, we may not think that we're in stressful situations, but sometimes we are. And so just limiting your stressful situations. Sometimes we get all caught up in things that, really, they're minor. And I think that we need to really look at our stress levels and just be careful of that in terms of how we live our lives.
Okay.
And we have to know family history.
Yes.
Yes.
And not
definitely.
be afraid to ask our parents and our grandparents what were
What's
some of
going
their
on? Because
experiences.
especially in Caribbean, culture, she wasn't feeling good and she passed
Right.
away,
Yeah.
and it just was undiagnosed. Let's hit some resources real quick. I know you guys will start, with your end, and then we'll work that way. What are some resources that are available to, especially in our community, where someone, needs to be checked or they have been diagnosed? Can you share some resources you're aware of?
Absolutely, and I'll not share the resources that these ladies are already affiliated with, but first and foremost, ensuring that you have some sort of a primary care physician that's sort of managing and overlooking your general care.
Okay.
Right, and so because they're the individual that's going to be responsible for maybe providing some referrals to different organizations or to get screening tools. You have organizations such as Frederiksted Health Care that offers a lot of resources to the community. I won't just say to women, but to the community in general. We also have our, the private physicians that you can go and get your screening. We have the imaging center that provides a lot of screening to the community. If we're going to the hospital, in my mind, there's some sort of a difficulty that may have occurred, but that's a resource as well.
And they actually have a phone number. I'll share that at the end, but the Department of Health does have an opportunity for those who are uninsured to come in and get screened, and then they can get referred.
Yes, and I believe, do they still have the mobile screening? I don't want to say
I think they do it periodically.
Periodically.
Yeah. Lily, would you like to share Ribbons for a Cure?
Sure.
Yes.
So I'm a board member with Ribbons for a Cure. We have two big programs going right now.
Okay.
One of them is our financial assistance program, where if you've been diagnosed with any kind of cancer, we have an application. You go up on our website, ribbonsforacure.net, www.ribbonsforacure.net, and you complete your application and you just send it to us along with what we're asking for, and then we reimburse you up to a certain amount of money. It all depends on, because we're a nonprofit, we depend on the community for donations.
And you can donate on that page too, right?
Yes.
All right.
And so based on the amount of donations we receive, we then give it all back to the community.
Awesome.
Our second program that we have right now is our scholarship program.
Okay.
So we know that it's a hardship. When you have cancer, there is a financial burden on the family because care and treatment. And so what we're doing is we're offering scholarships to students of whether it's their parents that suffered from cancer, or if the student themselves suffered from cancer, from some childhood cancer. And so we do not discriminate, it's cancer.
Correct.
And so as long as they can complete the application, I think this year this is our second year. The first year we had no takers.
Oh, wow.
Last year, 2 years ago, we did $2,500 scholarship, a $2,500 scholarship, a $1,500 scholarship, and then this year we were able to do a $2,500 scholarship as well.
Awesome.
So there is money, and so it's just for folks to know that it's there and it's available. So www.ribbonsforacure.net.
Awesome. And Cassandra, tell us about YAG.
Well, YAG Foundation, we have been paying for mammograms for the last 16 years.
Awesome.
And so what we have noticed, though, is you get a mammogram and then maybe there's an irregular finding. And then what do you do? If you can't afford a mammogram, you cannot afford that biopsy. So we've recently, with the help of the American Cancer Society, they've given us a small grant. We are now helping with the cost of the biopsy and the pathology reports. And we have found that that is definitely a big help in the community. In addition to that, we've formed a coalition with some of the other other cancer organizations, including Ribbon for a Cure. We got together, we put together a resource guide.
Okay, great.
and it's available online at vicoalition.org and also on some of our websites, our organizational websites. And the important part of that is on YAG's website, we also show you how to do a self-breast exam. Not just for women, but we also show men how to do it. Yes. So go to yagfoundation.org.
And you can donate there too, right?
Yeah, always. There's a big button at the top. Don't miss it. And it's been good work. And most recently now, the Department of Health has merged with us to further the work of the Virgin Islands Cancer Coalition. And so now we're in the midst of writing a cancer control plan for the Virgin Islands. And we're hoping out of that we will really be able to take from early detection through survivorship and everything in between.
Awesome. Ladies, this conversation has been so great. Like, I don't know how we're going to stop, but we do have to start kind of wrapping up a little bit. But I do want you all to just give me, or give the audience, what's your one thing? If they fast forward to the end of this conversation, what's the one thing you want them to take away from today? And I'm going to start with you, Kim, and then work our way that way.
I think the main takeaway that I would love the audience to have is that you have to screen for breast cancer, and you're not too young to start. And so if you've developed breast tissue, you can develop breast cancer. And so consistent screening helps to lead to early detection, and early detection really does lead to the success stories, the survivor stories that we've heard today.
Awesome. Lily?
Since Kim took my early detection, just kidding. So what I would say to the listening audience is, don't let fear be a reason for you to not get checked. Because sometimes you feel something, but you're so fearful.
Right.
And even after your diagnoses, you still are afraid of the actual treatment. Because I think in our community as a whole, we're so secretive.
Yeah.
And so the stories that we hear a lot of the time are the stories of someone who has passed. But there's so many of us who has survived. And so survival from cancer is real. And so don't let fear be what keeps you from going and get your treatment.
Awesome.
Because, when you do not get treatment, that is definitely when you give yourself that death sentence. But cancer is no longer a death sentence, so please, go ahead, get treated.
All right. Thank you. And Cassandra?
Well, I would say to anyone that's listening, you are the chairperson of your healthcare team.
Okay.
And you should be very educated. Don't be afraid to ask questions of your care provider.
Yeah.
If something doesn't sound right, do further research.
Yeah.
Always go for a second opinion if you feel that it makes you more comfortable. And communicate, and stay positive.
All right. Ladies, this has been so heartwarming. I just can't extend my appreciation again to all of you all for sharing and speaking with us today. I do want to make sure that before we sign off and I do my thank yous, that we share a couple phone numbers for those that might not have private insurance. You have the Frederickstead Health Clinic, which is 340-772-0260. You also have the Department of Health at 340-718-0482. Both of those are great resources for those that might not have private insurance. And I know that even amongst our organization, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, we're working on some initiatives to support that as well, so that there's no obstacle, as you mentioned, for anyone to get checked and the follow-ups around that. Also want to give a special thank you not only to our panelists, as I mentioned, but to the Office of the Governor for hosting us and letting us be here today. Government Access Channel, the gentlemen, they are always open to all of our ideas and supporting the initiatives, so we appreciate you. Also want to do a special thank you to the members of the Social Action Committee who produced this program, and of course to our chapter president, Ms. Petra Victor, for supporting the initiative. We are hoping that this program has encouraged you to know your body, to know yourself, and to know your options. Check your tetas, touch your tetas. Have a great evening, and thank you for joining us.